The first thing I noticed was her perfume, citrus and cedarwood, still hanging in the hallway long after the front door clicked shut. She hadn't worn it in months. Not for me, anyway. The second thing I noticed was the silence. No hum of her electric toothbrush, no distant voice notes playing from the bathroom speaker. Just the low tick of the kitchen clock. She'd left in a hurry. Too much of a hurry. On the kitchen table, an untouched plate of roasted vegetables, a folded napkin, and a wine glass already rinsed out. Her chair was slightly pulled back like she'd almost sat down, then thought better of it. The last text on her phone, yes, I looked, wasn't from me. I didn't recognize the name. Just a lightning bolt emoji and an address 2 towns over. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I just turned off the lights in the hallway, closed our bedroom door, and packed everything she ever gave me into a cardboard box labeled Spring Decorations. When she returned, hours later, keys jangling, laughter still clinging to her voice like the residue of someone else's evening, she didn't expect me to be awake. She didn't expect the living room to be dark. She definitely didn't expect my voice from behind the curtain. "Don't rush," I said. She froze. Keys in one hand, heels in the other. "There's nothing here for you now." She didn't say a word. And for once, neither did I. She didn't move for a long time. The front door was still cracked behind her, letting in a strip of orange light from the street lamp. Her shadow stretched across the rug like it didn't belong to her anymore. I sat on the armrest of the couch, arms folded, staring at the faint outline of her figure, trying to remember the last time I saw her come home and actually look like she wanted to be here. Eventually, she stepped inside and shut the door without a word. Her heels dangled loosely from 2 fingers, and she walked barefoot across the wood floors like a stranger who didn't want to wake the house. My chest felt like it was shrinking with every step she took toward me, not because I was scared of her, but because I already knew the answer to the question I hadn't asked yet. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" she asked. Her voice was calm, a little too calm. "Why did you rinse the wine glass before you left?" I replied. She blinked. That made her pause, just for a second. Then she shrugged, brushing it off like it didn't matter. It had dust in it. I didn't want to drink out of a dirty glass. "Interesting," I said. "You usually don't care." That was when she finally looked me in the eye, really looked. But there was no flicker of guilt, no anger, no fear. Just performance. Something about her expression felt polished, rehearsed, like she'd already practiced this conversation in the mirror on the way home. "You're being weird," she said. I checked her phone. Now there it was, the twitch, barely visible, a shift in her jaw. She turned toward the hallway, as if she might go into the bedroom, but I stayed in front of her path. "The lightning bolt," I added, "and the address. You went through my phone?" Her voice cracked, not from rage, but from embarrassment. It wasn't indignation. It was the sound of someone who realized their timing had been off, that they'd walked into the wrong version of the script. "I didn't mean to," I lied, "but it was just there, open, lit up." We stood there in silence, surrounded by furniture we both chose together, but that never really felt like ours. I could hear the neighbor's dog barking 2 houses down. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Then she said the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard come out of her mouth. "It's not what you think." And I laughed. I actually laughed. Because it's always what we think. We just pretend it isn't, because the truth is too ugly to fit neatly inside a sentence. She stood by the hallway mirror now, arms crossed, shoulders hunched just slightly, like she wasn't sure whether to keep fighting or play the victim. I could see her reflection, not just her face, but the tension riding up her neck, the way her lips pressed together before speaking, as if she were carefully choosing words that wouldn't completely unravel her story. But there was no right version left to give. And the thing about lies is, once you start rearranging them, the truth becomes the only part that sounds absurd. "I didn't go there to meet anyone," she said. "We were all going to the Driftwood, but the group split up. Some of the girls wanted to stop by." I cut her off. "Stop by a rented lake house outside of town with a man who sends you emoji invitations at midnight." She flinched like I'd slapped her, but still didn't deny it. Just gave me that same wounded look she always pulled when cornered. "I wasn't alone with him." "You left your location on," I said. "You were there for 3.5 hours. At a place with no restaurant, no bar, no cell reception, just a long gravel driveway and a lake in the backyard." I expected yelling. I expected tears. Instead, she sat down on the ottoman across from me, slow and deliberate, and stared at the floor like she was waiting for some invisible referee to blow the whistle and call the round over. "I made a mistake," she said, barely a whisper. "No," I snapped, louder than I meant to. "You made a reservation." That shut her up. I hated how calm she was. I hated how she didn't fall apart, didn't even pretend. Like she was already 10 miles down the road from this moment. Like she'd detached herself from the damage before it was even done. But I wasn't detached. I was still in it, drowning in it. "You know what hurts?" I asked, quieter now. "It's not that you did it. It's that you planned it. You picked out your perfume, your clothes, your excuses. You rinsed the wine glass like you were tidying up before a date. You left the porch light off because you weren't expecting to come home." Her lip trembled. Finally, the armor cracked. But I didn't want her tears. I wanted answers. Was this the first time? She didn't answer. I asked again. Still silence. That was answer enough. I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the drawer where we kept the old birthday candles and dead pens and takeout menus. I pulled out a small notebook, one I hadn't touched in years. And right there, at the table we used to eat Sunday breakfast, I started making a list. A real one. Of everything I would take and everything I would leave behind. She didn't ask what I was doing. Maybe because she already knew. That list I started, it was never just about clothes and chargers. I wasn't making a packing checklist. I was making an inventory of what was mine and what had quietly become hers without either of us realizing it. Things that felt neutral. A favorite throw blanket, the cast iron skillet, the ugly lamp from her aunt, suddenly had a weight to them, a story. It was like everything in the house had become evidence in a trial I never agreed to. I stayed up all night. She went to bed eventually, or at least into the bedroom. I don't know if she actually slept. I heard movement once, drawers opening, a suitcase maybe. At 3:14 a.m., she opened the fridge, stood in the glow for a full minute, and shut it again without taking anything. I didn't speak. I didn't move. Just watched the hallway from the couch like it was a crime scene. In the morning, I made coffee. 2 mugs. Reflex. Then I poured hers down the drain before it got cold. I started gathering my things quietly, not rushing. Old journals, my backup drive, the small wooden box my grandfather gave me with his initials carved inside. And when I got to the closet, I noticed her gym bag was still on the floor, half zipped. Something about it looked out of place, too full, too forgotten. Like it wasn't meant to stay behind. I don't know what made me open it. Habit. Spite. Hope. But I did. And the first thing I saw was a second phone. Burner style. Black. No case. No wallpaper. Just a password screen and silence. I nearly dropped it. Because suddenly, all the strange moments, her long showers, the bathroom door locked when it never used to be, the sudden need to check work email at midnight, clicked together like puzzle pieces. I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at that phone like it was radioactive. I didn't even try to guess the passcode. I didn't have to. She walked in 2 minutes later, and when she saw it in my hand, she didn't scream, didn't lunge for it, didn't even pretend to be confused. She just sighed, like I'd found her diary, and the game was finally over. I was going to get rid of it, she said. I just didn't have time. And that's when I realized she hadn't made a mistake. She had a system. There were folders in her Gmail I'd never seen. Passwords I didn't recognize. A whole other version of herself tucked into places I never thought to look. This wasn't just a fling, was it? I asked. She hesitated, then shook her head slowly. Then who is he? Her lips parted, maybe to lie, maybe to confess, but then something behind her shifted. Her gaze flicked toward the bedroom window. Subtle, too subtle, but I saw it. I stood up and looked outside, and that's when everything changed. It was still early, maybe 7:30 a.m., but the kind of early where the sky was too gray for sunrise and too quiet for real morning. A thin drizzle coated the glass, smearing the outside world just enough to blur the edges. But I saw it. Parked directly across from our house, half hidden behind the neighbor's maple tree. A dark gray sedan with tinted windows, engine running, no plates on the front. Just idling. Waiting. I didn't say a word. Just looked at her. She avoided my eyes and fiddled with the zipper on her hoodie like she was suddenly 12 years old and being scolded by a teacher. And that's when it hit me. The way her gaze had flicked outside, the way her tone had changed from indignant to resigned, the sudden confession about the phone. She wasn't just caught. She was preparing for extraction. Is that him? I asked. My voice came out lower than I expected, not angry, just stunned. She didn't answer, so I asked again, "Is that the guy from the lake house?" Still nothing. But her silence was no longer passive. It was active, strategic. She was choosing not to speak, not out of fear, but because she didn't want to give me any power back. She knew the moment she said his name, it would become real, tangible, permanent. I watched her shoulders rise and fall once. Then she walked to the nightstand and picked up the small duffel bag I hadn't even noticed earlier. It was already packed. Clothes, toiletries, a folder. She didn't even glance around to double-check. "You were never coming back last night," I said. "Were you?" She paused in the doorway. "That was the plan," she admitted, so soft I almost didn't hear it. And that's when the humiliation set in. Not just the cheating, not just the deception, but the orchestration of it all. The escape plan, the clean break, the quiet erasure of me from her life as if I were a failed subscription she'd forgotten to cancel. "Is this what you've been working on all month?" I asked. "The volunteer nights, the late meetings, the sudden yoga interest?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she walked toward the door, opened it just wide enough to let in a gust of cold morning air, then turned back to look at me one last time. "You were never going to leave," she said. "You just wanted me to feel guilty forever." And then she stepped out. That was when I moved fast. I grabbed the burner phone, the duffel, and the leather folder she'd left on the dresser. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I wasn't going to let her walk away clean. She jogged down the porch steps like someone who'd rehearsed this in her mind 100 times. The car door opened from the inside, just a crack, and that's when I saw him. Early 40s, lean, sharp jawline, smug tilt to his head. He didn't look toward the house, but I looked at him like I was memorizing a face I'd eventually ruin. And then I did something I wasn't proud of. I walked out onto the porch, barefoot, freezing, and held the burner phone up in the air. "Did he buy this for you?" I called out. She froze. He didn't even flinch. He looked down at his steering wheel, cool as a hitman. But I wasn't aiming for him. I was aiming for her. "You forgot something," I added, and then threw the phone hard onto the pavement, watching it bounce once, then slide into the gutter. She turned back toward me, not angry, not ashamed, but afraid. Not of me, of what else I knew. And I smiled. Because for the first time since this started, I wasn't the one left standing in the dark. After the car pulled away, I just stood there on the porch, in the drizzle, watching the taillights disappear like a signal being lost. She didn't turn around. Not once. That part stuck with me, not out of pain, but because of what it told me. She didn't look back because she didn't believe I could do anything. Not anymore. And maybe, for a while, she was right. But not today. I walked back inside, locked the door behind me, and set the leather folder she left on the table. It wasn't much to look at. No labels, no name, no fancy branding. Just plain, beat-up leather. But it had weight. And when I opened it, my hands actually trembled, because the contents weren't what I expected. No love letters. No hotel receipts. No steamy confessions or printouts of fake work trips. No, it was worse. Inside were documents. Contracts. Financial records. Business forms, some with my name still listed as secondary contact. A business she'd quietly registered 2 months ago. Not in her name. Not even in the state we lived in. But in his. The man in the car. And there was more. A shared LLC, transfer paperwork for the investment account we started together 6 years ago, and a purchase agreement for a small rental property we'd once joked about retiring to, now signed, sealed, and listed under both of their names. I didn't even know she still had access to those funds. But there it was. All of it. A clean slice through everything I thought we'd built. She didn't just leave me. She erased me and relocated the future we were supposed to have, and gave it to him. You know that feeling when your blood turns to cold syrup? That was me, sitting at the table in my own house, realizing I was being liquidated like an old asset no one wanted on the books anymore. But here's what she forgot. Before I was the guy folding laundry and watching her car disappear 3 nights a week, before I got soft and anxious and small in my own skin, I used to be sharp. I used to manage risk. I used to see the angles in everything. And the version of me she tried to leave behind? He was gone. What was left was someone new. And he was paying attention. I made calls. Quiet ones. To the accountant she forgot I was still in touch with. To a friend who owed me a favor and had access to property records. To an attorney whose kid I once coached in baseball, who always said, "You ever need me? Elle, I'm there." By noon, I had more information than she thought I'd be capable of gathering in a week. That burner phone, useless now, but her real one, still logged into our shared cloud. I accessed the most recent notes she had saved. There were lists, a timeline, password fragments. One line stood out, written 2 days ago. "Don't forget, Elwood still thinks I'm scared of confrontation. Use that." She was right. I did hate confrontation. But now I was waiting for it. And this time, it wouldn't be at home. I didn't call her. I didn't send a text. I just waited. 3 days. Let her think the silence meant surrender. Let her think I was licking my wounds, lying on the same couch where she used to leave her hair ties and rehearse her excuses. I didn't block her on anything. I wanted her to see the green up beside my name. I wanted her to wonder why I hadn't unraveled. She didn't message me. She was too smart for that. But not smart enough. Because when the letter arrived, the official-looking one with the bland envelope and the neatly typed return address from the county clerk's office, I knew she'd open it. She'd have to. Because people like her can't stand not knowing what move their opponent is making. And once she did, I knew she'd come. It was a small office space, a neutral conference room in a shared building downtown. Just cold enough to feel corporate, just impersonal enough that no one would raise an eyebrow at a couple speaking in tense, clipped voices on a Tuesday afternoon. She walked in 5 minutes late, wearing a blazer she never used to wear with me, hair pulled back, gold hoops, no makeup except for a slash of lipstick I'd never seen before. New color, new version of herself. She looked good, powerful even, but I didn't stand up. I wanted her to sit down and feel the difference. She didn't speak right away, just studied me like I was a pop quiz she hadn't prepared for. "So," she said finally, "is this how you want to handle things?" I opened the folder in front of me and slid a copy of the asset transfer across the table, the one with her signature and his. "No," I replied. "This is how you try to handle things." She glanced at it, unfazed. Then I slid the second page over, the one her assistant notarized last month, with a date that contradicted her tax filing. That one made her blink. "Do you know what this looks like?" I asked, not just to a lawyer, but to the IRS. She didn't answer, but her fingers tightened around the pen she wasn't using. Her posture didn't slip, but her rhythm did, like a dancer who'd missed a beat and was scrambling to catch up. "Elwood," she said softly, the first time she'd said my name in weeks. "We don't need to go to war." "Oh, I'm not at war," I said, smiling. "I'm just laying out the map. You pick the terrain." She leaned back, arms folded now, mask cracked just slightly. "What do you want?" I paused, not for drama, but because I actually hadn't figured it out yet. "I want you to know I wasn't the fool you thought you were leaving behind," I said finally. "And I want you to understand something." I stood up, slowly, then leaned forward just enough so she could hear me clearly over the low hum of the vent. "I stopped loving you the moment you rehearsed your exit." She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared up at me like a stranger who'd passed someone familiar in the street but couldn't quite place the face. "You'll get a list of what I'm claiming," I added, gathering the folder. "It won't be much, just what's fair. But if you try to move anything again behind my back, I'll make sure your partner's name is the only one on the audit." She stayed seated as I walked out. Didn't follow me, didn't call my name. And for the first time in months, I didn't wonder what she was thinking. Because for once, I didn't care. 3 weeks passed. She didn't call. I didn't expect her to. Not after that meeting. Not after the way I left her sitting in that cold little room surrounded by her own paperwork. I didn't need an apology. I didn't want closure. Some endings don't deserve punctuation, just silence. At first, I thought I'd miss her in the little ways. The smell of her shampoo on the pillowcase. The way she always hummed out of tune when folding laundry. The shared glance during a bad movie. But it wasn't her I missed. It was the version of her I invented to survive what our marriage had become. That ghost was the one haunting me. And eventually, even he stopped showing up. I moved out of the house, not in a panic, not as a victim, but on my own terms. I left her the dining table she loved and the photos she never bothered to take down. I kept only what mattered, my grandfather's box, my journals, and one framed photo of me at 22, grinning like an idiot with a backpack on, before any of this ever happened. That version of me, the one who still believed in things, deserved a second chance. I rented a tiny cabin near Alder Hill. Nothing glamorous. The kind of place with creaky floors, a porch swing that groans in the wind, and neighbors who nod instead of talk. I thought I'd feel lonely, but I didn't. I started waking up early, walking without headphones, cooking meals that didn't come in plastic trays. I read books I used to pretend I didn't have time for. One day, I even picked up my old sketch pad. The lines were clumsy at first, like my hands had forgotten how to say what they meant. But then it came back, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. One afternoon, while sketching at a quiet cafe in town, someone leaned over my shoulder and said, "You should finish that. It's too good to stop now." Her name was June. Uncommon name. Uncommon woman. She didn't ask about my past. Didn't flinch when I said I was rebuilding. She just smiled like she understood what starting over really means. We started talking, then walking, then sharing long silences that didn't need filling. There was no rush, no urgency, no angles, just presence. It didn't feel like falling in love. It felt like returning to something I forgot was ever mine. One night, sitting beside her on a hill overlooking the lake, I finally said it out loud. I used to think losing her broke me, but maybe it freed me. She didn't say anything. She just reached over, took my hand, and held it like it was something fragile, not because it was weak, but because it had been strong for too long. And that's the truth of it. She walked out thinking she'd stolen my future. But all she really did was make room for a better one.